Hello, I'm David, Elpas and Iris Product Manager at CenTrak. We're going to have a look at the new EDP. That's the Elpas Display Panel, version 2. This is a 7-inch touchscreen, wall-mounted device that performs a number of alarming and tag tracking functions for both Elpas and CenTrak systems. The first major function that it does is it gets alarms. Okay, so here's my tag, trigger an alarm, and the alarm appears on the home screen. We get the annunciation, the sound, through the stereo speakers on the display. And I can open up that alarm by tapping on it. I can acknowledge that alarm so that everybody else sees that I've got control of the alarm. And notice that at the bottom I cannot close the alert. That's because there are still outstanding actions to be taken. So we're going to go into the action screen, notify security, and I'll get the timestamp for that action, lock down the perimeter, and call police. These are actions that were defined for this alert. And now you can see that the close event button is active, and I confirm that. Now we're back to the home screen, showing the clock. The next thing I can do is search on tags. So here I see the two tags that are defined in the system. I can search on a particular tag simply by using the pop-up keyboard. And I can enter, and once I select a tag, I can change the status of that tag. So from active to suspended in this case, and change this status. This is a function that would typically be done for, let's say, an infant tag or a wandering tag if we want to take them out of the wards. The display shows a clock when there is communications with the Iris server. The alarms that you see on the display originate from the Iris server. However, if the Iris server crashes, and I'm going to kill the server right now, then you can see that attempting to connect to the server. Now, while this is happening, we now see the log of what we call the local alerts. Those are the alerts that are received directly from the controller to the display. Now, once the alerts arrive at the display, then they can be distributed to multiple displays. Let's clear or acknowledge all of the alarms currently, and I'm going to trigger an alarm. Remember, the Iris server is currently down, and as you can see, we got an alarm, attack on staff, and it's beeping until I acknowledge that. Now, one of the features that is not turned on now is a PIN code. You can require a PIN code in order to acknowledge and to mute the alarm, the controller alarms. And now I'm going to start up the Iris server. So now we're back to the home screen of the original Iris server. Since Iris server started up, it notified on a tamper. We're going to just clear that alarm. And we're back to the clock. But you can always toggle between the Iris alerts, the tag search, and the local alarms. Again, within 15 seconds, the local alarms, as long as there's a link with the Iris server, will revert back to the Iris alerts. There we go. We are going to review some of the features of the Elpas display panel by going through some of the settings screens. You can access the settings screens from the display panel by inserting a pin, such as a paper clip, into the rightmost hole above the display. Or you can actually connect to the display using a browser on another device, and that could be a mobile or desktop. So we're going to be looking at a Chrome browser here on my desktop. The first tab on the settings screen is the iris. So we give it the address of the iris, the display language. You log in with a specific iris user. Since we associate a client name and a badge filter to the user in iris, selection of the user will determine which alarms are sent to the display, and it will determine what tags are displayed for status management. The time zone in this case is set by the server. We can check the connection. Connection is successful between the display panel and iris server. I mentioned to you earlier, we turned off the PIN code for event handling. And enable feedback. What does that mean? Meaning that we can get alarms, we can get the feedback messages from the iris controllers directly, not via iris. This is the port on which it listens to the feedback, and I can add as many additional feedback servers as I want, so I can have, let's say, another 10 displays and send from this display to those other 10 displays. So again, from the controller to this display, and then this display can forward it to multiple other displays. That's regarding the local alerts in the event of an iris crash when the controller's backup iris. For the LAN, I can set a static or DHCP gate address, right? Standard settings. Here's the Wi-Fi settings. And again, I could use DHCP or static. This is the screen where I can update versions of the application. So if CenTrak releases additional versions of this application, the displays can simply download those from a URL that we will provide to you. And of course, to get into the settings screens, you need an administration password, and this is where you would define that password. Finally, we're able to adjust the volume of the sound on the speakers. Again, stereo speakers at the base of the display, but if you prefer to use external speakers, or let's say connected to a PA system, then you can simply insert an audio jack into the board inside the display panel, right? While we're on the topic of the enclosure or the physical device, the Elpas display panel is enclosed in the Elpas universal enclosure, which is compatible to standard US gang boxes and European gang boxes. It's got doors on the edges for cables, and it's got knockouts at the back of the panel, so that basically there are a large number of mounting and installation wiring cabling options. That's it for today. Till our next product, this is David. Have a good one.